And welcome to the Confound Millennial, starring Steven Sturvin Michaels, Chan the Man Miller, and featuring special guest, host of the Run Along podcast, Hannah Lichtenstein. I hope I got your last name right.
You did. That was actually fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah, and also I don't think I could have drawn up a better intro in my head in terms of the tone. Perfect.
Sometimes you just got to let that movie announcer voice out. Coming to you soon, this weekend. Absolutely nothing.
If this podcast thing doesn't work out for you, absolutely have a career in doing voiceovers and commercials and stuff.
Well, that's what the original goal was, do a little podcasting, get a little, use that on my resume, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So definitely. What about you? Now our fans, they know who we are. Who are you?
So we're keeping it light for the first question.
Yeah, light for the first question.
Like how we just ease into it.
Why are you here?
I guess I describe myself as a washed up athlete turned sports journalist. That's my one-liner. And obviously a millennial. Otherwise, I would not get the coveted invite to this show. I'm currently in journalism grad school, talking about how our podcasts were going to help us in our careers. My podcast definitely helps me get into grad school. So I believe in the power of the podcast.
So,
yeah.
What now? We're gonna, go off a little bit.
I'm an old child. I don't know what other things.
Your favorite color?
Yeah, exactly. What's your
Green.
favorite color?
Yeah.
Haven't got that one yet. Why is green your favorite color?
Even though I don't live in the best nature scape, I live near the beach in California, so it's beautiful in its own right, but I think of green being nature, and I have green eyes, which you can't see in the Zoom. And I don't know, whatever reason kids choose their favorite colors. I couldn't choose blue because I had to be a little bit different when I was younger.
Chandler, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Green is my favorite color.
But you've never expressed what your favorite color is.
You, I'm sure. We've been friends for 10 years, man.
Yes, yes, you're not wrong. But out of guests, hers is the first one to be green.
Uh-oh.
You keep a record of this, Chandler?
You guys might need to go into a breakout room.
In my head, I keep a record.
So,
Spikes is still the funniest.
So, ignoring Spike, we're going back to, you said you're a millennial, and here at the Confound Millennial, we're called the Confound Millennial mainly, number one, because I had a boss that refused to say GD, but he would say confound and say he's tired of all these confound millennials. But I owned it because I'm not good at being a millennial. And in some ways, I'm overly millennial. Like I have a podcast. What's more millennial than that? But then also, I don't know how to use the computer. So
yeah, paradox.
What would you say would make you a confound millennial? Like either something that you're really good at as a millennial or really bad at as a millennial?
Well, I have the double whammy here of being an only child millennial. So I feel like my not being able to do things is maybe product of our generation. I can't live on my own and raise money at the same time to buy a house, but also I've definitely been enabled by my parents who, my dad used to joke that I didn't own shoes until I was 6 years old because he just used to carry me. So just to give you the sense of, I sometimes feel like a little snowflake millennial who can't handle things. The world's a scary place. So, and getting scarier by the minute as we talk on the eve of our election, although we won't get into that here. But what makes me not a millennial? What makes me not a millennial? I feel old. My joints feel like, being an athlete, I feel like I have the joints of a boomer. So that.
So you were an athlete.
I understand that statement 100%.
Yeah, it hurts. Things hurt. And, it feels like at 26, they shouldn't be hurting in the ways that they are.
Yeah. Hard work, definitely. I don't know. I feel like it's a millennial thing nowadays. Like we're all, I don't know if it's what they fed us in the public school system or what, but all of our bodies are falling apart as we come closer to 30.
Definitely.
But
Well, I mean, let's be honest, my body's been falling apart since I was about 15. But
and I
also,
lost
like,
my hair at 18.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, I mean, us millennials right now, anybody, and obviously the Gen Zers, but like so many people that are just staring at computer screens all day. We're losing our eyesight. We've been forced to sit so much longer than it feels like any other generation. We're getting scoliosis, probably. Our backs are degenerating. It's just some tough stuff we're navigating.
Now I'm really concerned about how I'm sitting. I was just doing the full millennial slump. So, how you were a soccer player, right?
I was, yeah.
How long of your life was that?
Oh, I guess my parents signed me up for my first team when I was 5, and then I suppose I officially hung up the cleats in March. I was planning on playing one more, semi-professional season in Europe, but then this pandemic happened, and so I pivoted. Here we are in grad school, being more of a real adult.
Now, did you have?
So you're saying sports isn't for real adults?
It felt like I was a little bit of like a Peter Pan. I'm just gonna go to Europe and avoid doing
avoid the real world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, one of my questions that I had was, does playing sports, like, how much does that affect, like, being a quote unquote real adult when you get out of it? Like, does it feel like I've been living in this different world and then suddenly you have to do what everybody else is telling you that you should have been doing?
Well, I mean, I think for maybe some of the big time athletes, we're talking about like the pros with the media spotlight, or maybe the elite athletes that are training for the Olympics and they're on this 4-year cycle. I mean, I was a competitive athlete. It dictated my life and it dictated my, parents' life, driving me around and my social circles. But, I was a Division III soccer player. And I definitely throughout my life cultivated those other parts of me. As best as I could. I valued academics. That was always going to be the first thing that I looked for when I was looking to play collegiately. And even when I was playing in Europe, I felt like this desire to like figure out the other parts of Hannah. So I feel like it wasn't some like stark not knowing how to do things because I was no longer an athlete, but I do feel like there was an emotional band-aid ripping off of an emotional band-aid that I needed to deal with, which was, just not seeing certain friends anymore, not having certain goals to work to, that sort of bigger transition. Yeah.
And with that, like, you're currently a sports journalist and podcaster, right?
Yes, I'm a baby sports journalist and hopefully more advanced sports journalist in training after I come out of this program.
Are those things that you were working on while you were playing soccer, or did that not come until you got out?
Well, again, I went to a small college, or I went a Division 3 school, which is, those tend to be smaller colleges. There was no like broadcasting or journalism major. We didn't have like some big, sports communication or media communication department. And I mean, my other passion, I think, growing up was history, storytelling. And it wasn't until I had downtime as, playing in Europe, where if I wasn't practicing, I really had a lot of free time to figure out what I wanted to do with myself, what skills I wanted to develop. And it was in that free time that I was like, oh, I can mix my two loves of sports and storytelling. And the podcast started when I was in Sweden. And that's how I've come to, throw my hat in the ring to apply to this program and what I think I want to do for many years to come.
Now, a lot of your fans have heard about, through the podcast that you did that we were talking about before we started with, what was the name of that episode, in case anybody wants to learn more about you than we are telling, they can check that out.
It's pretty straightforward, just called The Host Story. So I think it was from a couple weeks back, and that's where I dive into me a little bit more. Although I do prefer asking questions and hearing other people's stories. I wonder how many people are going to not want to have only children after hearing this episode. I feel like I'm I'm giving a terrible. I promise only children are also capable and they're not all messed up. Maybe.
Well, since you're talking about only children, what is the one downside to you of being an only child? Like, what's something that you wish that is an effect of that?
I don't know how willing you guys are gonna want to go into dark humor, but
Steven has very dark humor. So
whenever I do something risky, like maybe if I wanted to go skydiving, I have to think like, oh, I could risk killing 3 people. Because like if I die, my parents, they're out. So that's the big downside. In addition to, I had friends that were spiders, all the weird things that only children have to do because they're lonely at home.
Yeah, it's weird. I have 2 brothers, but one is 6 years apart and spent a lot of time with we're half brothers, so spent a lot of time with his mom. And then a younger brother that's 15 years younger than me. So there's 3 of us that were all raised as only children.
Interesting.
So we've got the, the brotherhood, but we also all were raised only children lives. So we totally
kind of like best of both worlds in some ways. I don't know. There's a lot of great things about being an only child too. Blessing and a curse. What about you, Chandler? Siblings?
I have a brother.
Nice. Older or younger?
Older.
So you were the baby.
We love you, Jarrett. So how long have you had the Run Along podcast going? Since 2019, right?
Yeah, May 2019. So we're getting to that maybe year and a half mark pretty soon.
Now, how often do you post your episodes?
It's been a little, I'll go through phases. Like I definitely was going through a long phase where I was posting one every week. Which for the kind of show that I do, which is more like script writing, and less like live conversation, it was definitely pretty time consuming, but I'm kind of liking this bi-weekly, once every 2 weeks format I've got going, which I had to shift to because of grad school. So trying to figure out what's right for me has definitely been a trial and error process. And I know that as different things come into our lives and, you move to a new state, there are all these things that you have to adjust to, and your podcasts, you figure it out.
Right. We, here we used to we started out with once a week, then we went to twice a week. Then every now and then my depression would grip us and we'd go dark for a little bit. And most recently, we were trying to do 2 a week, and we've actually had to reschedule this episode because of this. I moved from Georgia to Kentucky, and that took a lot of time. Had to reschedule a lot of episodes for it, but I'm here and we're back and we're trying to post twice a week again.
That's very millennial of you to outwardly talk about your depression.
Yeah, I've gotta. I mean, that's part of why I started this podcast too. Was I have depression, I have anxiety, and what helps me is hearing that there are other people out there with it and that they can joke around, goof off, and still have fun even though they hate themselves. So
you hear this? This is the sound of my anti-depression pills, everybody. Oh, it's like we can get a band going, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. But it's something that you got to talk about. Mental health is such an important thing that has been swept under the rug for too many generations.
Absolutely. It's definitely one of the big things that both my parents are boomers. Definitely something that we talk about a lot. And the idea that like going to therapy doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It's actually, I'm pretty certain that up ahead, the world is just going to be divided into therapists and people going to therapy.
Well, I mean, in reality, a therapist could just be talking to a friend. It doesn't have to be like a legit medical therapist.
Yeah, just talking about your feelings, especially being a man. Men face a lot of challenges with, not wanting to seem weak or whatever, talking about their feelings.
And I think that's a thing that millennials are kind of breaking down to, especially like you see different memes like on the way outskirts of what we're talking about, like it's fine just spooning with the bros, man. Just crack open a cold one, spoon with the bros. But like for real though, like millennials have broken it down to where we're realizing, and I think Gen Z as well, like dudes gotta talk about stuff. Like nobody is as tough as the world is gonna tell you to be.
Definitely. And yeah, men suffer, and then ultimately I'm not gonna say that all men are with women, but when men don't talk about or don't develop healthy mechanisms to communicate their feelings with their friends or with their other loved ones, then when they ultimately get into a relationship, a lot of times they end up treating the girl like a therapist, and it can be like an overflow. So it has a ripple effect. And I do hope, with our generation and the one below us. And then, did you know that below Gen Z, is it Alpha? Have you guys done your research on this?
I have not. I didn't know there was one below Gen Z.
Well, there are babies coming.
True. But
yeah.
Didn't think that far.
I wonder what.
I think they're starting like the Greek alphabet. I don't know. See, people are gonna have to fact check me on this. But A is the first letter, or Alpha is the first letter of the Greek alphabet.
Heard them, y'all. Fact check her. If she's wrong, blow up in the comments. Tell her she's wrong.
Cancel me like a millennial would.
So, what's your podcasting journey been like, other than, on and off again, and how did it start from, nothing to where it is now?
Yeah. It's as I'm sure you guys have experienced, some amazing things have come from this podcast that I never could have predicted. People that I've gotten to talk to that I thought would never give me the time of day. even just average folks, and seeing just like the power of having someone's story be told, and really just not even being aware of the impact, the ears that your episode might fall on. Definitely just, I think, there's so many podcasts, and I think it's so easy to get wrapped up into like, how do we make ours different? How do we, what do we want this podcast to be? And I think we see with podcasts, like, you can either make a killing, or you can't make a living, but you can make a killing. And I think we all want to, there are some big time podcasts out there where it's just like, this would be so fun to just have as a job, like being a podcaster. So I think for me, it's just been figuring out where do I want to take this show? Should it just be like this little side thing? But then having moments where I'm like, no, I want to go all in this. And yeah, it's like a baby. I definitely feel like it's like a child of mine, and I just want to give it all the care possible, but what's sustainable, I guess.
How much work do you put into your podcasts? I mean, I listen to it, and obviously you're one of the people that does something that we dare not do.
One of the people, yes, those crazy folks. Yeah,
that listens to your own episode.
Yeah, I think I got into that idea because I love like This American Life. I think This American Life was one of those first podcasts that I got into, like way back when I first started listening to podcasts. And I guess I just kind of took it there, this like extra storytelling in between people's own natural voice. So it does take a bit. I don't, it's embarrassing how much time I work on my podcast. We'll leave it. That's the answer.
We're not embarrassed by the fact of, we really could be just doing the show live, but we like to have the safety net of doing, a little bit of editing to it, but we don't put nearly as much work as you obviously do.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe you can edit out like the dead parent joke or whatever you feel for your
No, we for sure like to keep people's jokes in. No matter how dark they are. As long as it's not like very
until
wrong
Chandler
and disturbing.
Until Chandler.
That's a fine
makes
line.
A joke.
I think, like in journalism school right now, we learn about like the ethics of journalism.
Yeah.
Where's the line? Where do you call someone out, or where do you put a content warning? Or I don't know. These tough things being a host.
Like we kind of faced that with our last guest episode that we had. We had a stripper on, and I was trying to decide.
I really have big shoes to fill right now. Okay, so you had a stripper on. All right,
yeah,
continue.
And I was trying to decide, like, we didn't have anything overly inappropriate, but obviously it was a bit inappropriate, and the conversation went there. So I was like, what do I do on this, when YouTube asks whether people should be over 18 or not to listen to it? And I was like, huh. And I went ahead and I put over 18, even though we could have gotten away with it. But it's just like, I had to draw a line somewhere.
Yeah. Well, that's the fascinating conversation. I can't wait to listen to that one.
I mean, I haven't even listened to it, and I don't know if I will.
I can't wait to listen to it before it gets pulled.
Such a good episode. Such a good episode. But
he begged me to be in the episode. I couldn't bring myself to do it.
Oh.
His girlfriend would have killed me if he was on that episode.
Girlfriend, you mean fiance? Gosh.
Oh, sorry, fiance.
Wow.
Wow, congratulations.
Wow. It's almost been a year and you're still calling her my girlfriend? Wow.
Yeah, it's almost been a year. When's the wedding?
2022.
Yeah, I'll see you
Time for you
then.
guys to go in a breakout room again.
So, how do you, what you were talking about, how, doing a podcast, we get to talk to these people that we never thought that we'd get to talk to. Uh, who was like that first guest for you? That guest that you're like, wow, this is actually happening.
Hmm. I don't know if you know Cody Simpson, but he's Miley Cyrus's ex-boyfriend. He's he's like a blonde Australian. He was a former swimmer and now he's a pop star and ex-boyfriend of Miley Cyrus. That was really cool. And but I think also that I don't know if you would have heard of her, but she's a Swedish golfer named Annika Sorenstam. She was a big deal, and I was definitely freaking out a little bit. Yeah, retired athletes, they have more time on their hands, most of them, than active athletes. So I think I have that going for me.
Was it hard for you to keep your composure?
Yes, actually, I wrote about that as one of my weaknesses in applying to this program is, yes, keeping, keeping composure when interviewing high profile guests and coming up with follow-up questions, because I feel like sometimes you have your list of questions and if someone's like really cool, at least this happens for me, I just ask the question and I'm so like in awe that they're talking to me, and then I'm like not listening to what they're saying. I'm just like go to the next question and it might not be that smooth of a transition, you know.
Right. We've had a couple episodes with some bands on that, not many people that I know of listen to them, but they're my favorite bands. And we'll do an episode and like I'll just get in my head suddenly just thinking, man, I'm actually talking to these people. And next thing I know, Chandler's like mouth yelling at me like, but so one thing, the reason why we got you on this show was you have been following and liking our posts on Instagram for a while. Why? How did you find us? Was it through the podcast life hashtag or?
Probably. I love that that is one of the main reasons I'm on this show. Yeah, it's honest work, you know, someone's got to do it. And there I am. There I am clicking. Yes, probably through podcast or hashtags. And then I think there's the Instagram algorithm where it's like once I've liked a few of yours, then it just wants to show me everything you're doing, which I appreciate.
Like I was telling somebody earlier, like if I post something and I get one like on it within an hour, I want to guarantee it's you.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm gonna put that on my resume.
Definitely number one top fan of the Confound Millennial on Instagram.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean it's I'm sure you guys have experienced this. Like there's this whole other component to podcasting, which is like social media. And I hate it.
I hate
And
Yeah, we lack in that pretty bad.
yeah, I don't think I do it the best. And I think I try to I once I start spending too much energy and I put too much concern towards it, I get upset that I'm not focusing on something else because it's
See, that's where you're not a millennial. You don't like social media.
stupid. No, I do. I do. I love it too much. I'm on all the platforms, Twitter, not TikTok. That's definitely more of a Gen Z thing. But Twitter, Reddit. Are you guys Redditors?
Oh,
Okay, so I started posting this on Reddit, but since I made a Reddit account just to do that, all the pages just instantly was like, well, you got to get your whatever it is to get like your account up
Your
or
karma.
whatnot.
Your
Yeah,
karma.
and I was like, I'm not, well, how am I supposed to do that if you don't let me post? Like,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
just kind of gave up on it.
Yeah.
we're we've been behind on social media stuff. Like we just now last week got on Patreon, which is such a valuable tool for podcasters.
Sure. Yeah. When did you guys start your podcast?
We started the winter of 2018.
Yeah, almost 2 years.
Oh my God. Congratulations.
We've
Or no, it's
got
past 2 years, isn't it?
no.
No?
We started in December.
December? Okay.
I remember it was December. I came up to you with a Guitar Hero microphone and my laptop and was like, "Let's do this, Chandler."
No, that's not how that went at all. But
No,
okay.
it's not. You came to me with the Guitar Hero microphone.
And you jokingly said at one point, "Let's start a podcast." I'm just like, "Okay, let's do it." And then
With
you just kind of stood there shockingly and didn't know what to do.
Yeah, because Chandler doesn't do anything. So I was surprised that he wanted to do this.
Can I ask what your guys' horoscopes are?
Uh, something with an L.
So
I
when's your
don't
birthday?
remember. September 26th.
Oh, Libra. Oh, so you're not, well, it feels too late to say happy belated birthday, but
I'm a Leo.
well,
Oh, so
I'm
we're
kind of
both
getting more
something
into
with L.
horoscopes, but I can't tell you about those two. I should have, had something prepared.
I mean, I don't know much about it other than that's what I am. So,
So you're like August?
yeah.
Nice. Cool. I am the grandma. I am the boomer of this podcast episode.
I'm trying to figure out where the heck I was with my questions, trying to reel
Yeah,
this
God,
back
we've
in.
spiraled so much.
That's what normally happens in our episodes. They
I always get
they
thrown
go
off
woo woo.
I always get thrown off when someone asks me what my sign is.
Really?
Yeah, like I don't expect that to be asked ever, and then I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then especially when they don't have a follow up with it, like, "Yeah, I was just wondering."
Wow, just call her out like that. She talks about follow-up questions and then you just call her out for not having a follow-up.
Normal people don't care about horoscopes, so consider yourselves normal then.
That's the first time
I see a
someone's
lot
called
of
me
people
normal.
sharing stuff on Facebook
I
almost
think
every day.
millennials are more into horoscopes than Gen X. And probably the ones above that.
I think you're right there.
So we were talking about your top interviews that made the podcast real for you. Who's somebody, whether it be obtainable or not, that you just dream of having on your podcast?
I mean, there's so many. Mia Hamm, Michael Phelps.
I just had a feeling you were going to say Michael Phelps.
I know, I always bring him up. I only cared about swimming during the Olympics, like most Americans. But yeah, he's always, and he's had an interesting journey. I think, speaking of depression, he's had an interesting journey after his time as a swimmer. But there's so many cool ones like Lisa Leslie. There's really like so many old athletes that would be cool to have on. I would like to have a whole round table discussion.
So, what were you going to say, Chandler?
A round table discussion of like famous athletes, that would be a very interesting conversation.
Exactly.
I feel like it'd get kind of depressing.
Not if you're thinking about transition, and no, I don't know. Some athletes like really relish the time after competing, right? When it's been so all consuming and they haven't been able to go to family weddings and etc. There's certainly a loss of purpose, maybe in a weird transition time, but depending on where that athlete is in their retirement, it could be more inspiring than you'd think.
So what has podcasting done positively in your life?
It's got me to grad school. That's positive. I think it's just like turned I was depressed. That's when I got diagnosed with depression, was when I graduated from like being a student athlete. So when I left my college soccer team, and I was really, yeah, just grieving. And so I think what the podcast has done for me is it's taken something that was really dark and sad and this weight in my life and turned it into something productive, and that there's been a lot of positives that have come from that.
Do you think the depression was because of leaving college, or that it was always kind of there and you just didn't kind of accept it?
I mean, I have it like in my family, and but no, I think that leaving college soccer was, or the thought of leaving college soccer, was really my senior season, that it was just too much for me to bear and I couldn't think of life without it, and sort of spiraled.
I feel like that's a major thing for athletes in general. Like, if they don't have anything planned after college sports, that they don't know how to act or do
Yeah.
after college.
And I think for me, it was, it was a really close team. So a lot of my friends and a lot of my identity, my self-worth, like, I think when you're an athlete, you can get trophies and medals and All-American awards, or your coach tells you you had a good game, or a teammate or a parent, and there's just this constant like external praise. And so I really feel like I hadn't developed like self-love properly, because I feel like my self-worth was always tethered to sport. And so it was really that, who am I? And I don't like myself without this in my life moment.
Right. And with me, podcasting has really given me almost a sense of identity. I didn't really have anything that I was good at or felt good at until I started podcasting. There was always acting, but acting isn't something that you can, it's like podcasting, but it's even harder to get into. It's one of those you can't make a living off of, but you can make a killing off of it.
Yeah. Oh, and it's been, obviously it's not the same as a team in terms of I'm seeing podcasters every day, but it's definitely a community. Podcasters, like, that's how I found you on is through a hashtag that kind of represents the podcast community. And it's cool. We definitely have a lot of the same struggles, whether it's interviewees rejecting our requests, or we have technical difficulties, and it's or just, I think so many podcasters relate to, like, I didn't think anything was going to come of this, but X, Y, and Z cool thing came from podcasting. I think we all relate to that.
You talked about technical difficulties. Have you ever had the worst nightmare of losing an episode?
Yeah. This was really early on, but there's like this female soccer player who won the 1999 World Cup, who I looked up to since forever, and I managed to get an interview with her, and it didn't record. So.
Oh no.
What about you guys?
Recently we had to get our computer fixed, and they were like, if we wipe it, we wipe it. Like, and we're like, why would you do that? But luckily we didn't have to lose that. But we did one of our first, our second YouTube video that we did. I forgot to hit record on the video while we had the Libertarian vice president on. And
I was my girlfriend was asking about you guys, and I was mentioning that Joe Jorgensen, that's his name, right?
Spike Cohen is his name. Joe Jorgensen is she's the presidential candidate.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I messed that up. But anyways, I did reference that episode, and I was talking to my girlfriend.
But yeah, that was probably, in our opinion, like our like, oh wow, we're doing something here.
Yeah, I mean, if I mentioned it, then there you go.
And
Um,
we were it was funny. We ghetto rigged it so hardcore. I might post the video one day of behind the scenes. We're both in Chandler's room. We've got a sheet hung between us. We're sitting back to back. Chandler's got his phone taped to a
To my dresser.
dresser, and I had forgotten to hit record, and Chandler just, if you watch in the video at one point, you can see us just smiling and the sheet move behind us as he's passing me a note
that's
saying, "Did you
funny.
hit record?"
Yeah, it's definitely a worst nightmare. And now ever since then, I always like have my phone recording like a backup. It's not the greatest quality, of course, but it's something. So just having that, if there's any, you know, podcaster hopefuls out there, definitely try to get a backup recording.
That's not even the first mistake he's made. Just a couple weeks ago, we were doing a podcast with a band called Young Driver, and we get probably 5 minutes in. I'm like, "Hey, Steven, did you hit record?" Because as you can see on Zoom, it says recording, so you can see if someone's hit record. And
I'm not. I never said I'm good at this.
Kennedy and that her band, they just lost it. The whole time in general in the podcast they were laughing, but with that they lost it, and they actually backed up and let us just completely restart.
That's awesome. You won them over.
Definitely. They were so, like, to anybody that watched that episode, like, how bad they were laughing the whole time. They were sending me videos from Waffle House at like 1 o'clock that night of them just losing their minds laughing about stuff.
It's funny.
But so I got a few more questions left. Number one, if you could pick another sport other than soccer, what would you have picked?
Probably basketball. We have the unique situation in California where most basketball around the country, definitely college basketball, and yeah, I think pretty much all high school basketball around the country takes place in the winter. But we don't have seasons in California. So high school soccer was in the winter, which meant it was overlapping with basketball. And even though I'd play a little bit of basketball growing up, there was, I obviously was going to choose soccer. So maybe if I was born in a Georgia or a different state, then I could have done both. And who knows what could have come from that.
And then bouncing back to the podcast, I was wondering, do you use Anchor or something else?
I use Podbean.
Podbean, okay.
Yeah, this is another problem with being a millennial. Is like you have so many choices now with everything, like so many decisions that need to be made. And I feel like you get into like paralysis analysis or whatever, analysis paralysis of like, I could have spent probably a lot of time reading all the differences between Anchor and Buzzsprout and Podbean, and I just kind of went for it. But yeah, that's definitely a millennial problem, figuring out which platform.
That's what we did too.
Yeah.
We just went with Anchor. We went with Anchor. We didn't really pay attention to the others.
I feel like Anchor is the one that I hear like on all the sponsors. That's how I knew about Squarespace, which is what my website is. Squarespace, I heard in an ad during another podcast, like a big podcast. And I feel like I do hear Anchor a lot in the big podcast ads.
Yeah, I love that they have these apps out because it's so easy to start a podcast nowadays. And, some podcasters would worry about oversaturation of the market, but I really suggest to anybody that's got a desire to podcast, like, do it. It's so easy nowadays.
Absolutely. I really think that that's where we're heading. I know the amount of podcasts on Apple Podcasts from like 2019 to 2018 to 2019 like tripled. And God knows how many more came on platforms this year, especially with the pandemic. Yeah, it's definitely the future. Everyone's going to have one.
So, do you have anything that you would like to say as closing words to? I'm going to ask you this question twice with first, any closing words you'd like to say to anybody looking to become a professional athlete of whatever level, and then to people wanting to become a podcaster of any level.
Oh, geez. Again, we started light and we're ending light.
Absolutely.
Well, okay. In terms of wanting to become an athlete of any level, you really just got to first evaluate what are your goals. Do you want to play Division I college soccer? Do you want to try to play professionally? Do you just want to make like your JV team? Obviously, figuring out what that goal is going to be really helpful, and figuring out how much time and energy and sacrifice and commitment are going to happen. But of course, stemming from the theme of my own podcast, I mean, most athletes, I mean, not even most people don't even play in college. So let's say you retire from sports anywhere from 16 to 25, whatever that age is, you have, luckily, like hopefully, if you're healthy, you have another 60 plus years to live. And those years of not being an athlete are so much more than the years that you were an athlete. So obviously you want to think about how can you be fulfilled, what's going to make you happy, what's going to keep you driven beyond playing sports, because it will come to an end one day. So while you're thinking about being an athlete at whatever level, think about your non-athlete self of the future. And as for podcaster hopefuls, of course, recording a backup. And of course, just, going for it, just taking the jump. I mean, I remember I stared at my first episode, like I turned it over, the idea for it, I edited it. The first one might always just be the worst episode. But once you go from there, like you learn so much. So just taking the leap.
And
put it this way, our first episode doesn't even exist anymore.
That's how bad it was. It had to completely go away.
and you listen to the second episode and you'd think that's the worst thing you've ever heard. But no, the first episode, that's definitely the worst thing ever recorded.
And it's hard because I feel like so many people will listen to your first episode. And it's like, I know, it's like kind of this catch-22. It's like, wait, that's not fair.
Yeah, it's like, please don't start from the beginning. That's why we broke it into seasons, hoping people would start with season 2 maybe, where we actually kind of knew what we were doing.
Yeah. But the sooner you get started, the sooner you can make it better. That's the plan.
All right. And Hannah, what are your plugs, social media? Where can we check you out at?
Yeah, at Run Along Podcast, or just go to any of the Confound Millennials posts and look at the likes, and and you'll find me there. Hopefully many of you guys are enjoying this episode after listening to the stripper episode or whatever. At Run Along Podcasts, Twitter and Instagram. Yeah.
All right. And one final question before we let you go. We sent you one of our guest episodes, and we hope that you listened to it all the way through, so you were prepared for this final question we have to ask you.
Okay.
We ask all of our guests this, and we are not going to back down from this, no matter what Spike Cohen says that we should. I was asked this as a teenager, and I will ask this to people until the day I die. So imagine with me, if you will. You are in a pool full of snot up to your shoulders.
Okay.
Someone runs up, maybe Chandler, with a bucket of urine and throws it at you. Do you duck into the snot or not?
Did you ask this question to like your favorite bands and all these people that come on?
I've asked this question to anyone. I forgot to ask the stripper, though. I hate
It really
that.
it really levels the playing field with this question. Yeah, I think I have more of a tolerance for urine texture. I'm like big into textures, and I feel like I think I can handle the texture of the urine, which is more like water than snot, which is not.
Heard it here. Hannah Lichtenstein hates snot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you have it. This has been a great episode. I'm so glad we got to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for liking our Instagram posts and giving us hope when we thought we weren't reaching anybody.
Oh, you can bet that I'll be clicking that like button until, my finger falls off. So.
And this has been the Confound Millennial, starring Steven Sturvin Michaels, Chan the Man Miller, and featuring Hannah Lichtenstein of the Run Along podcast. Go check it out, y'all. Stay saucy.
I'm tired of these confound millennials.